Gentlemen, hello.
Oh,
Welcome back to another episode of Mack Flash Leisure Fan Gab, or as we affectionately call it, LFG. I am Scott Despins. I'm always ready to LFG, and I'm going to LFG today with Matthew Robbins
I'm ready to LFG as well.
and AB. Are you ready to LFG?
I am also ready to LFG. Why not? Let's
We are
go.
going to LFG just like we did 2 weeks ago. If you clicked on this link, you know what we're talking about. Last time we talked about episodes 1 and 2 of the Book of Boba Fett streaming on Disney Plus. And today we're going to be talking about episodes 3 and 4. Bit divisive on the old internet, these two episodes. We're going to dive into the good and the bad of each. Gentlemen, before we dive into the minutia, quick thoughts on the episodes. People at home, if you're watching this, odds are you've already watched the episode, so you know. Gentlemen, what did you guys think? Do you like these episodes? Do you like where the show's at? Do you like where it's heading? And what did you think of these last two episodes? Do you like them more than the first two or not?
Episode 3 was a real 75 good, 25 bad, and we'll talk about why as we move on. But episode 4 was fine. There's a little bit more to talk about and dissect just a little bit as far as like unanswered questions and future theories.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that. Like you said in the opening there, it's a mixed bag, but there's a lot to like in episode 3. And we'll get into that. There's a lot of fun stuff there to be had, but then there's some glaring bad things which we'll get into that almost hijack it for the worst. But the good far outweighs the bad in 3, and then 4. We'll get into it, but it's a lot of stuff that, like Matt said, was a lot of stuff we already knew, and is this kind of like explaining like how we got to this point, which we knew most of it anyways. So it was kind of just like you needed to tell it. So we'll get into that. But
Of course. So, we'll begin. Episode 3, which aired last Wednesday, begins with a fun cameo. Stephen Root.
yes,
Stephen Root, who you would know from Office Space and a variety of a bunch of other films and TV shows, playing a guy who's coming to Boba Fett for a favor. And he's I was really interested in this, and I was messaging AB while I watched the episode, because I was like, okay, cool. We're gonna see the streets of Mos Espa on Tatooine. I think that's the name of the episode as well, too, the streets of Mos Espa. So you're going to see a really ground level episode of what's going on there and the crime syndicate and things that are going on. And I think he was tasked with something to do with water, the water on Mos Espa, and water's drying up and trying to get it back to the people and things of that various nature. So what happens in that episode is Boba Fett and Fennec come across, what is it, a gang of neighborhood street toughs, downtrodden.
I mean, to call them that is
yeah,
generous.
I mean,
oh man,
so the most divisive thing, which we're going to get to, if Matt can fire it up for us, and as he will as we go through the episode, he comes across this band of four Mos Espa. They don't have work, so ultimately Boba Fett does the thing that any good crime boss would do, almost in the same vein as what Batman would do, is adopt them, and you will now work for me. You don't have work. You guys are making it on your own out here. You will now work for me and be part of my crime syndicate of sorts. You'll be my street level eyes and ears. And
which I love that. I love that. I love that whole idea of bringing them in on it. And you're like, these are kids that are young and clearly have the gall to go up against Boba. They call him out. This is basically after they say him, you're like, you got nothing on us, old man, and like basically talking back to him, and he already knows that this gang is terrorizing Stephen Root among other people, right? And kind of on the street.
Terrorizing.
Well, sure.
When
okay.
I
forgot about it. Remember when Stephen Root comes back out and he's like, "You're not going to do anything?"
Right. When Stephen Root first talks to a Boba Fett in the palace, it reminded me of the part in Jaws when Chief Brody is in his office, and Polly, the secretary, comes in and talks about how the kids from the local karate school have been karateing the picket fences. And it's just real, like, yeah, I mean, yes, we have to do something about it, but that seems to be like the big crime of the town of Amity Island at that point. And yeah, we meet this group of, I think they're officially called the Mods. This group of, they're older than teenagers, but clearly supposed to be young rebel youths who have body modifications. They replace willingly pieces of their body with droid parts because they think that looks cool. And
which
yeah,
which
sees
they
Guardians of the Galaxy once.
Yeah, they look, and like, you know, in Guardians of the Galaxy 1, they kind of make them look like that for cheeseball, like for laughs. Whereas this is meant to be serious, and it
they give them a
ridiculous.
very steampunk style.
Yeah, and it's like really bad steampunk. They don't look badass They don't look badass at all.
We'll get to the colors. So that's where I wanted to go mainly, is the introduction of these 4 kids, the Mods as well too, and oh, sorry there. As you can see, they do give them colored speeders, which we'll get to later when they do the chase. But this is what divided the internet quite a bit. And as I say, I'll come in here and I'll give the temperature of the internets. And Twitter was OUT on these kids coming in and doing it. But granted, it being Star Wars, I don't know. Does it fit? Coruscant would be wealth with those guys. So are these just Coruscant people? Is George Lucas looking at this and going, Leo Giff going, that's Star Wars? Maybe he is. But as we go through the episode,
they make for good play sets, right? I mean, like,
that's exactly the
for
point.
The kids, right?
As fans, we were awarded the live action debut of Black Chrysanthemum, who debuted in the comics. This was clearly the opposite of that. We're introducing these characters who are obviously going to move on and have their own stories in comic book form, because those 4 colors just scream splash page after splash page.
Cartoon spin-off.
Totally. And like, I want to give out, I think her name, what's her name is, is it Sophie Thatcher is the
I called her
kind of the head one.
I called her the second runner-up of the Jyn Erso lookalike contest.
She is in another show called Yellow Jackets, and which is blowing up the world right now. And so she's an up-and-comer. So when she came up, I was like, okay, you know, that's something to look out for. But that was the only thing that kind of popped me. Their mods looked really clunky. That was the biggest thing for me. Was like, especially her second in command guy with the eyepiece, and he makes a comment about it later on, but it just looks really clunky, like something coming out of a Comic-Con almost, like.
And that's exactly
some cosplay.
Yeah, we're going to Niagara Falls in June, and we're going to see a group of these kids without a doubt.
So yeah, we'll get to the actual meat of the episode too. So the episode begins. Boba Fett's in his bacta chamber, having visions again as a kid, and he goes off. This is where the timeline splits, now showing us the prequel side. So he leaves the Tusken Raider camp on a bantha, and he goes to speak to this gentleman here. Sorry, I gotta get my share. So Matt, tell us a little bit about this, because then this is going to lead to him returning back to the Tusken Raider camp. But give us a little minute rundown on this.
This is the local leader of the Pike Syndicate. The Pikes were seen in episode 2. They had the speeder train passing through the Dune Sea, and Boba Fett helped the Tuskens stop them, and made an agreement with them that they'll pay up a duty or a toll to the Tuskens, and then they will freely be allowed to travel the Dune Seas on their trains. So Boba Fett heads to Mos Eisley to collect, and this gentleman here, voiced by Phil Lamar, regular Star Wars voice actor Phil Lamar.
Excellent.
He says, we paid up to the Nikto speeder gang, so we're not paying 2 people. If you want your money, you gotta go deal with them. Perfect. And Boba Fett says, all right, once we get that settled, I'll be back.
Yeah, and then in going back, heads back to the Tusken Raider camp. and finds it demoed. What do you guys think about that? The Tusken Raiders, who accepted him for 2 episodes. Out on episode 3, all the backstory, the super hot Tusken Raider who trained him, gone.
So, well, here's the thing with that is that, there's a bunch of bodies, he finds a bunch of bodies and burns them on the pile. We don't really see or recognize any of those individual bodies. We see a bunch of the bodies, but we don't see a thing. So I have a funny feeling that probably at least a couple of them will come back into play later on, just because, like, if you don't see them dead, they aren't dead, right?
And there's very well, we know where we're heading with episode 4. We'll get to the fun of returning characters and who's going to be coming in. And you're right, he does have clout with the Tusken Raiders. So is there going to be a scene when somebody has a knife to Boba Fett's throat and something comes in, the big stick comes down, and it's surviving Tusken Raiders who he hasn't seen?
Literally, I was looking for a recognizable Tusken Raider, specifically
the chieftain's wife. The chief?
I don't think so. Is it?
I mean, I
don't think so.
One person who would know. I can't tell.
But I mean, specifically, we don't see his wife, right? The chieftain's wife, the one all in the black, the really badass.
She's the one we're going to have to look out for.
Right, and we don't see her at all. So I'm fully, when I was looking for her in the bodies, I'm like, I don't see anything that looks like her. So I'm like, okay, she is most definitely popping up again, because again, if you don't see the body, more than likely they're not dead.
And we'll circle back to that, because that does make a good prediction that maybe she is alive. Maybe she does come in the last episode and help out, and maybe there's a lot of meat on the bone to explore that. If she's alone and Boba Fett instills her as the right hand, there's a lot you can do to play off between her and Fennec.
He's collecting and we'll get into it especially in episode 4, where he's collecting basically a ragtag army of all these different factions, right? And it's almost like, you look at Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi, and it's filled with just a zoo of different aliens, right? You got aliens from all over the galaxy, all congregating and all part of Jabba's little.
I think Jabba's strategy was more hedonistic than
sure, but you get my point that it's kind of like bringing in all these different ragtag people, and it's kind of like unifying all these outcasts, where you have your Tuskens, you have this street punk gang, and we'll get into the person who his other recruit in episode 4.
The show on the whole is that he said in episode 1 he wants to rule with respect, and
that's right.
You can see, and that's the one underlying thing. This is the first where you just talked about he's putting his team together. We're going to talk about the first time when it actually pays dividends. So now that was the past timeline, in the present timeline, Boba's in his back to tank as well too, and as he's healing up his wounds, who comes in, who breaks in like the goddamn Kool-Aid man? Black Chrysanthemum, he's back, baby, and he's giving it to Boba Fett.
And we what was our prediction in the last episode? We were like, they need to show that Black Chrysanthemum is a badass, and what do right away?
Which was the surprising part. I mean, we probably expected this to happen later down the season, but to have it done right away was the surprising moment.
Yeah. And and again, the people are divided on the street gang. I was pretty annoyed that the street gang was kind of serving Black Chrysanthemum. Black Chrysanthemum kind of dominates them a little bit, but they're still getting their shots in, and I'm like, get out of here, street gang.
So that's the one divisive thing as well too. So that's where Boba Fett is seeing the results of his decision, and it's while Boba Fett doesn't have his armor, he's effectively stripped naked because he's in the back to tank, and Black Chrysanthemum has electrified brass knuckles. So not only does he have superior Wookiee strength, he also has enhancements on his fists. And the 4 ragtags with what looks to be a pistol, a swinging chain with a little ball on the end, and a small dagger, kind of give it back to him 4-on-1 on Black Chrysanthemum, who just in looks like a superior Wookiee to even Chewbacca. And we know that Chewbacca can tear the arms off stormtroopers and instill fear. We saw it in the freezing room in Empire, a whole room of people, and Han has to calm them down. But otherwise, Black Chrysanthemum gets his ass kicked by these 4 teenagers. There was a little bit of a divide where I think we all kind of saw that and went, oh, okay, this is teetering on lame. The good thing of it, though, the right decision then they made after this is Black Chrysanthemum backs up, and he's over top of the steel grate floor that everyone knows in Jabba now.
Well,
Boba Fett's palace.
before you get to that part, he like tackles both the Gamorrean guards, like piles through the two
in a
Gamorrean
violent
guards.
fight. Yeah,
Because I was like, at that point when they were handing it to him in that fight, I was like, okay, this is kind of ridiculous. But then he like tackles both the Gamorrean guards down the stairs, and I was like, that was my favorite part of the fight, because I was like, yeah, he just dominated those guys.
So that was and it was violent. We were
Yeah.
texting at the thing. I said, "Oh, this is a violent street level fight, which is what you want in a show like this." And it was all fists, and it was great. And then they effectively trap Black Chrysanthemum in their palace. So the floor gives out, and Black Chrysanthemum is down below. So that at the point in this episode leaves us at the time what I thought was Boba's new Rancor. I said, "Oh, this is a fun decision. They're going to make Black Chrysanthemum the Rancor. He's now down there, and then someone's going to cross him in episode like 6. He's going to hit the switch, and he's going to go down, and Black Chrysanthemum's going to eat." So I was like, okay, he gets his Rancor. Well, behold what happens later in the episode.
Yeah.
So what happens right after that? You guys want to go right to the huts?
Yeah, he's in the Rancor pit, and then Boba and Fennec are having dinner discussing what they're going to do next. And as they come to somewhat of a conclusion, you can hear rumbling, and they head outside, and outside is the return of the twins.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in this scene, they come to apologize to Boba Fett, and they for double crossing him and sending Black Chrysanthemum here back to kill him. And they want Black Chrysanthemum traded. They want him freed. And in doing so, they provide a gift.
Well, they said, Boba Fett brings out Black Chrysanthemum as a prisoner, and he says, I'll return your prisoner. Thanks for your apology. The Hutts say, keep him as our tribute because we're getting off planet. There's a new syndicate in town. We're not going to fight a war. Tatooine is a worthless rock, not worth fighting for.
Mm-hmm.
Peace out. The Hutts are leaving, which was interesting in itself. It obviously provides the information that if Boba Fett wants to continue ruling, he's going to have to fight for it. And what surprised me in terms of the twins coming back was the twins coming back so soon. In episode 2, we saw them. They're these very well put together CG, very expensive looking Hutts. Mm-hmm. And similar to the Black Chrysanthemum fight, I thought maybe we'd see them again, but further down the road, because to see them right away must have cost a couple of bucks. I was just surprised to see them so soon again.
Well, and just in that what they were talking about, when they start talking about the crime syndicate coming in and thing, it seemed like they're afraid of them. So they seemed to me like I got the impression that yes, they don't want to bother, they don't want to get into a blood feud, all that stuff, but they're also, it seems like they had a bit of a fear of this syndicate, which sets up the syndicate as being something that Boba should be afraid of and needs to rally people to fight. So if the Hutts are afraid of this thing, then it's something worthwhile. It's something something significant.
I don't think the Hutts, the Hutt clan at this point is as strong as they were in the Imperial era.
Yeah, they lost Zero.
Yeah, they lost Zero. That's true. They lost Zero during the Clone Wars.
They lost Jabba and Zero, and it's all over there from there.
And they lost Jabba, and I think it's in a comic book. Darth Vader goes in and takes out a couple of more family heads, so their numbers are clearly not war-worthy.
Not only that, with the Empire now kind of dismantled, they don't have the significance of the crime underworld, right? Now the crime underworld can blossom, as we've seen with all these different syndicates rising up and taking power. They're not the sole crime underworld that they used to have, where there's kind of like a power struggle between all these different syndicates now that the Empire's gone.
Yeah, the Empire, though evil in nature, were a governing body.
That's right.
So
now it's
in their own way keeping the peace.
Now it's basically the Wild West, and
Yeah.
so they're just struggling for their small little piece of the pie.
So they do bring a gift. You gentlemen want to talk about the gift?
Oh man,
Gift of Danny Trejo.
As soon as I saw Danny Trejo, I squealed. I was like, oh my gosh, it's a Rancor. Oh my gosh, it's Danny Trejo as a Rancor keeper. This is the best. This is the best. I was like, I don't care if anything else happens in this episode. I have Danny Trejo in this episode with a Rancor, and it was glorious.
And this is obviously what we're talking about. I mean, it gives with, I mean, the episode takes with the mod gang, but gives hard with a Rancor and Danny Trejo.
Oh yeah. So then, he gets it in there and, starts telling him about training. It's actually a calf. It's a child Rancor, and basically talks about you can mold it to what you want it to be, and talks about the loving relationship between the keepers and the first person you see, which blew people's minds over the internet. But that's been around in the legend stuff for years. You get into the Tales from Jabba's Palace, which we talked about last episode, where they have a whole story in there about the Rancor keeper from Return of the Jedi, and it's actually a really great story, and it's it gets into that relationship between the Rancor and its keeper and between its master, and you really get a feel for why the Rancor keeper in Return of the Jedi is literally like bawling his eyes out at the Rancor getting killed. It's not just him losing a job. This is like loss of a child to him. And so when Danny Trejo was giving all this little spiel about the Rancor, people that have been around for a while in the Star Wars world were like, yeah, like the Rancors are like loving like pets to people. And you get into other canon stuff with the witches from the Clone Wars. They apparently kept Rancors as well,
and were able to ride
them.
Legend says
exactly. So with the witches were canon, so that I guess now means that is canon as well. And so one of the fun little Easter eggs that I heard was Boba. Yeah,
Boba 10 times bigger.
Yes. And so Matt, I know this guy's super happy about it. Does that mean that the holiday special is now canon now?
Elements are for sure. Not just I mean, this is only this is part of the evidence to support that. The other being that they placed that animated feature on Disney Plus. You can see this section of the holiday special on Disney Plus. They didn't put the whole thing. They put the important debut of Boba Fett part on there.
There you go. And so now at least part of the holiday special is now officially part of canon, because he mentioned that one little throwaway line that he wrote something bigger, which is alluding to that. But yeah, no, that was just a fantastic scene, and you kind of Boba's eyes light up at the prospect of riding a Rancor and like having this Rancor at his will. But did you guys get a feeling that Danny Trejo has something else up his sleeve?
Not so much. I think he's dedicated to training the Rancor for him, and as we'll go on, Boba Fett talks about recruiting more and more people, and having Danny Trejo on your side is not a bad thing.
Yeah,
so my hope is that he's standing arm in arm with Black Chrysanthemum, Danny
if you're
Trejo,
looking for a team at the end,
Tusken Warrior Lady.
It's going to be him riding the Rancor next to Boba Fett on a Rancor or a bigger creature. And that's why you bring Trejo in. I don't think he had anything. I think he was there to show like
it just I don't know. There's a couple things. There's just a couple things that kind of rub me the wrong way, and I hope that you guys are right, because I want to see that.
You're not going to trust this guy who tweeted out how it started, how it's going.
But
you're not going to trust this guy,
buddy. I made that guy cry in real life, and these guys know the story. And I actually made him cry in real life. I love Danny Trejo. I think he's one of the most fascinating guys in Hollywood. So, like I said, I was overjoyed when he joined the Star Wars universe officially. So, and you could tell he loves it. He's all about it. Like you said, he's been posting stuff nonstop about it since the episode dropped. So
it's really
super exciting.
His resting face has a snarl. So to suspect him only comes naturally.
So let's get back on target. Somebody who needs to be suspected.
target.
Let's get the suspicion off Danny Trejo and onto the mayor's office.
Yeah.
And what happens next then is the mayor's liege. They go pay him a visit, and it results in, I don't know, this car chase, speeder chase through town.
Back to the Future.
Again,
Part
very
2.
much Back to the Future with exactly, and even then he goes into the fruit at the end. Instead of, it's not manure, but he definitely does crash into it.
We missed one important detail about that last scene. Sorry, before we move on, is that he lets Black Stanton go and gives him a parting shot, from one bunch to don't join up for scumbags, right? And so it lets him go, and Black Stanton gives him a look, which we'll get to. Sorry, I that was an important thing that leads into episode 4, right? And so before we get this, the speeder chase, going through the things, it was like you said, parts of Back to the Future, parts felt like Aladdin, like the guys chasing through Aladdin, like all the marketplace stuff getting crashed into like Aladdin, and like
they didn't do the classic 2 guys carrying a pane of window. Instead they used the 2 guys carrying
a picture of Jabba.
Ralph McQuarrie art print of Jabba the Hutt, which I loved only because I used to have, and actually still do from time to time, that as my computer wallpaper for years.
So funny. Yeah.
I think if nothing else about that scene, that's probably something George Lucas would really like. And I think now, being Star Wars fans, we long for the George Lucas of it all as we get more and more away from anything George. It's nice to see that it's like, okay, bright colored speed bikes racing around a CGI town of Tatooine. Like, I don't know, this would be a very soft spot in George's heart, and for that I think the mayor stuff, I'm out on that storyline. I think the mayor's assistant, the Twi'lek, I don't like that little storyline, and I'll be the one to say I don't like what they're doing, if it can't be trusted, and I don't really understand why he's like a double agent. Like, the mayor's not the villain, right? Like, we proved that in the last episode. So why is the Twi'lek doing every possible thing to look guilty? Is he a double agent for the other crime syndicate? I'm not sure. I don't understand what I'm missing with this storyline.
I think the mayor is in the pocket of the Pike Syndicate.
Agreed. Okay. Yeah, for sure. And so he wants to keep the status quo for what's going on with the Pike Syndicate.
He claims his innocence, but when in this episode, when Boba Fett comes to confront him, his office is empty. He's clearly he got the hell out of Dodge because he knows exactly what's coming, and he's not going to get caught in the middle of a war between Boba Fett and the Pike Syndicate.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, then the episode ends shortly after the chase, and who arrives, Matt? It just ends with a closing arrival shot of
the reinforcements of the Pike Syndicate show up in Mos Espa, and after their presence is known, we go back to Boba Fett and Fennec receiving this information and saying to each other, "We have to get ready for war."
Mm-hmm.
Of course. So that's the end of episode 3, a mixed bag of it. I think it was at that point, I think it was about 45-minute run time. So, but in it, what do you guys grade it? Out of 10, what do you give that episode? And of the 3 before, favorite, least?
Not as good as 2, better than 4 and 1. Like I said, as far as a percentage, 75% good, 25% not that great. So
I'll give it a 7 as well. I think we're on the same boat. If you're looking at that,
I agree. There's more, like we said, more to love than to hate, but also like a lot more interesting stuff than 1 and 4.
I can find positives in like the mod gang. I liked the concept of what they were.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't pulled off too well. There's certain parts where their biggest complaint was that water was too expensive, but they can afford droid parts, fancy bikes, fly clothing, and $600 haircuts.
Like to be fair, I know people like that in real life.
Yeah.
that would rather spend money on like flashy things than groceries.
Right. So
So
they need to get their priorities straight. Sure, Stephen Roy
Boba's
is charging an
always
arm and a leg
there.
for water. It is a necessity of life, but I mean, you can choose between drinking water or modding your eyeball so you can have C3PO eyesight.
yeah.
Well, so 30-minute mark, perfect. That concludes episode 3 talk. Episode 4 comes in, and the episode begins with Boba Fett having a vision, riding a bantha, riding the bantha up to Jabba's palace, and I think he's, I guess he's planning or saying that he wants to go storm the gates at the time, but he wants to get his ship, the people with jobs one ship, and he knows he can't. So at that moment, he's not able to because he is just a one-man lone gang, and he knows it's futile. So as he rides through the dunes of Tatooine, he comes across a lifeless body of
Fennec
he sees the action that led up to that, because he sees the flares
and the
flares, and so like that is what we've already seen in Mandalorian, the flares in the night sky, and that he sees the aftermath of her laying unconscious with a blaster shot in the stomach.
He picks her up, puts her on the bantha, and they ride to a mod parlor where I don't know if anybody is a fan of the
this got a pop
modifier.
For me. Yes, this got a pop for me. When he turned around, I was like, "Is that?" And I had to look it up, and I'm like, "That is Thundercat, who I've seen in Detroit twice." He's a bass player. He's like a bass savant. He plays like a 12-string bass. A very hilarious dude as well. Is a very fun guy. He also produces all kinds of hip hop tracks for tons of people that you would know. And he's just great. He's a virtuoso. Won Grammys. He's great. And so like it was just a fun pop for when he turned around. But when he first walked in there and he had the kids outside, saying, "What are you doing here, old man?" Yeah, there he is. I was like, "Oh no, more of these mod kids."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Here we go with that." And so I was, even the ones inside, I was kind of like, until he turned around, I'm like, Thundercat. And that's so funny that, they would just pick some, random celebrity to play that. I guess I don't know if he'll come up again, but it's just a little fun cameo. And I'm sure that, Thundercat's a fan.
One of the best things about being in a Star Wars anything is that you could dine on that at Comic-Cons for the rest of your life.
Sure.
He obviously has another outlet entertainment-wise, but for certain people, you go to con after con after con, signing autographs and then living, comfortably.
Sure. I wonder how annoyed he'll get when he wants to be taken seriously musically, and people will be throwing Star Wars nerd questions at him. Thundercat. I'm just here to play music, guys. Stop playing and asking me about my mod shop.
Yeah, he does a MTV Unplugged, and where there's a Q&A section, and there's play Star Wars.
Yeah, he probably would, but I thought that was pretty fun, and I liked his line there, because he's got a line of people waiting to get modded. And he's Boba Fett's no walk-ins, and then Boba Fett just said she'll die and drops the credits or whatever on the bag of credits, and he said, "Well, why didn't you start with that?" That was pretty fun. So gets her in there, mods her up.
Well, she's modded up, saves her life. She's back. They kind of have a conversation, and this is where we get the start of their working relationship. They kind of compare stories they talk about. And I know at this time, Fennec wants to go out on her own because she says she's tired of working for people who are going to get her killed. And the only person she can trust is herself to work for. Same thing. And Boba Fett kind of can attest to that, right? He spent his whole life as a bounty hunter, and he's sick of working for bounties, chasing scum, working for scum. So you can already see where they're coming at and where they're working together. So Boba Fett tells him his plan. He wants to go storm. Now he knows he's got some help, and he wants to go get a ship back. And we know his ship famously from the original trilogy is in compound at Jabba's palace. So as they do, they storm into Jabba's palace, and this is a little fun Star Warsy kind of stuff. They go through the kitchen and come across a couple droids there, and have to kind of fight their way out, and almost like a video game style, and not get caught, and guards kind of come. What do you guys think of this? Did you see the General Grievous kind of callback from the chef with 6 arms?
Well, even the other droid there is one of the torture droids from Return of the Jedi, right? Even the same voice,
right?
And so it was as an EV droid. So when that first droid started talking, I was like, oh, it's the same voice as Return, right? And it had a little 2-minute scene before they burst into the room, but yeah, it's pretty fun.
It's actually the second appearance of that chef droid, not necessarily the same one, but the same model is in Attack of the Clones. He's flipping pancakes on that refugee ship, and he says, "Hey, no droids," when R2 walks away with the bowl of soup or whatever.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's great. So no, that's fun. I there's not too much to talk about this. It's just like, again, you see a little bit of the palace.
We've caught up to the point where Boba Fett is in the time of the Mandalorian TV series, because he makes his his triumphant return with Fennec Shand by his side.
Now, right. Well, I mean, even in the desert, those flares are the Mandalorian, right? So
yes, all of that happens during the Mandalorian, and now the Mandalorian takes place 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So there's a chunk of time missing.
Well, let's get through this when he gets a ship, because that was my big thing. I know exactly where you're going, and I want to get to it in about 30 seconds time, because right after this scene, well, let's say he gets his ship and he flies out, and then him and Fennec are talking, and he's like, now we're even. You paid off your debt that you owed me for saving you. Well, where do you want me to drop you off? I have a task that I want to do, and this is what you're referring to. So she's like, no, I'll come along for the ride. And his task is, now that I have my ship, I need to go get my armor.
Well, first things first, he's going to take out the Nikto speeder bike gang, who presumably took out the Tuskens in that amazing, shoot them from the sky action sequence.
Just obliterates them. I was just like, it took like 30 seconds, not even to take out the entire gang.
Now,
which was hilarious.
He tells the story to Fennec, and she responds with, a speeder bike gang took out a tribe of Tuskens, and it doesn't make quite much sense to her. So there's obviously a second element to who took out the Tuskens. It was probably either the speeder bike gangs and the Pike Syndicate, or the Pikes did it themselves and framed the speeders.
Sure.
That's great.
Which if it wasn't just the speeder gang, maybe the Pike Syndicate has hostages, aka those other Tuskens that we're talking about.
So that's a great shot as well too. And this is exactly so.
Boba, we get to hear what kind of ship his ship is, a fire spray gunship, because they won't call it by its original name anymore.
It is no longer the Slave One.
That's right.
It'll always be Slave Run.
It's always Slave One.
Yeah.
So then this is where it comes back to what Matt is referring to, and a kind of scene that I've been excited to talk to you guys about. So he takes his ship and Fennec back to the Sarlacc, and he says, my armor is in there. And I don't know the exact line, but he says something that I spent many years in there, or something about years that it's been since he's been in there. What does he say?
I'm not quite sure. I'd have to rewatch the whole scene.
Well, there was something about a mention of years that had passed by. I'll bring it up and see if I can. And that's where the time jump kind of confused me as well, too. Mm-hmm. So it was like, well, how long has he been out of this? How long did he spend in there?
Right. Well, let's start there.
Okay, so the line is, I got it right here. The Sarlacc pit, that's where I was trapped all those years ago. That's the exact line from this episode. All those years ago. This is episode 4 of Book of Boba Fett, and this is the first timeline. All those years ago. So how many years did he spend with the Tuskens? How many years is it now since the Tuskens died that he met Fennec? This is all stuff that I'm like, wait a minute, all those years ago? This is glossed over like that? Like, now this is where, now that you're getting into the Mando timeline, I'm like, so he spent years with the Tusken Raiders? He spent how long did he spend in the Sarlacc pit?
Yeah.
Well, if anybody else has a theory, it's mine would be he spent maybe a day and a half in the Sarlacc pit.
Sure.
Because with the explosion of Jabba's skiff, that would give off a lot of smoke and send a huge signal. The Jawas would have seen that and made their approach. Sandcrawler isn't too fast, but I don't think he was in there more than a couple of days.
Yeah, probably because he was dying for air. So, I mean, if you got to think he had maybe 24 hours of air in his armor, I don't know. Maybe he hasn't. And he had to go right to the stormtrooper to get his air valve. So then in this scene, he says, "The Sarlacc pit. We're gonna go in. That's where I'll find my armor. That's where I'll find my armor." So then I'm like, okay, I know I'm kind of out on this, Boba. You're making all the right decisions until now. So. I don't know if you remembers him getting out. He had his armor. So was he like half awake when the armor was stripped off of him?
I assume by that scene, I assumed that he was delirious and kind of like he was, just barely surviving, like and collapsed when he collapsed, and like he made zero effort to stop the Jawas from taking it off him. Like they basically did nothing to like.
And one of them hits him in the head.
Really, he does. Too. He does, but he doesn't make any fight to stop him from doing that. Like, and these are just Jawas.
I'm just saying that's probably where his memory went.
Sure, that makes sense. But yeah, I just assumed that it was thing. But like you said, why he would assume that how would he, like, I don't understand why he would assume that he got out without the armor. Like, why would he think that? Like, if he didn't have the armor on, like he said, he said, Fennec says, "Oh, the armor would be dissolved by now," and he said, "Not Beskar." But how would he have gotten out without the Beskar on? He would have got dissolved.
Yeah,
too. Without it, he got out of there. So I didn't understand why he thought it was down there.
And then even then he says, he's like, "That's where I'll find my armor." So I don't know what his plan is. Is his plan, like, we know that Sarlaccs are going to be as big as, let's just say, the giant worms from Dune. They're massive. They're enormous. How could he possibly go in and get it? We saw the stormtrooper and him, you could barely see because of all the organs that surrounded them. So he flies his ship kind of up to the mouth of the Sarlacc to look in. I don't know what he was looking to find.
I mean, that's just certain get a good point of view, and with the headlights on, maybe he'll see the armor he thinks is
there. It is.
Yeah. And then
wrap rope, pull me up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Matt, what I thought when they first pulled up to the Sarlacc pit, I knew that he says he's looking for the thing. I thought he was just going for revenge. Like, I just wanted to see him take it out, right?
Yeah,
and which would have made for a better like thing. Like, I want to take that thing out. That thing almost killed me. I want to go and like demo it.
One thing I would have liked to see, and we're seeing it here, the Sarlacc's tentacles are wrapping around his ship. What I would have loved to see was Boba Fett power up and pull the Sarlacc out of the sand. So we can get a good view of what one looks like out in the open air.
That would have been cool.
That would have been great. He could have thrown a gas tank in. Smile, you son of a bitch. Fly off. They don't do this. I don't know. This is the whole thing where I wanted to text you guys, and I know we wait and talk about it, and maybe this is what I've been waiting for this whole episode to talk about, is like, I don't know what Boba Fett's plan was. Because then even when the Sarlacc tentacles go in, it's like, yeah, well, no shit. This Sarlacc has tentacles that, a giant mouth that's going to come out. What's stopping it from eating your ship? Oh, I can't get away. I can't fly away. It ripped off my gunner. Like, what was his plan? I just was like, all for armor that you, again, if you had spent years without, you now know the ways of the Tusken and respect their tribe and fight with their weapons. I mean, yeah, jetpacks are cool, but you can go.
But it's also a tie to his dad, right? And his only thing that he's ever cared about.
It's tied to lots of people's dads.
No, but that's, we keep having flashbacks of him as a kid with his dad, and that is the only thing we've ever seen him care about is Django, and we know the effect of Django dying in front of him had, and so like I think it's more about his sentimental value of the armor being like his one attachment to that. So I get why he wants the armor, but it just seems a silly. You're right. It seems like a silly plan.
I think with the gap in the time here, season 2 is gonna probably fill that in.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that will
You're
be
giving
him
too much
going on
credit to
adventures.
Lucasfilm. There's going to be 3 books that fill that in. You're giving
Whatever.
too much credit to Lucasfilm.
He's going to go there. There's going to be something is going to fill in that gap of him going on adventures, helping people or threatening people or whatever. And like he did several times in this episode, he says, "I am Boba Fett," and nobody believes him because he's not wearing that armor.
That's true. That's true.
It's virtually his identity.
Yeah.
And it strikes fear in people. It's like Batman, essentially.
Yeah.
It's striking fear in everyone. Everyone recognizes that.
That's true.
They see this guy's, you're not Boba Fett. One, Boba Fett's dead, like Fennec thinks. And he's not wearing his costume. How are we supposed to believe that you're Boba Fett?
True statement. The one good thing we got out of this was he does get the wish of Fennec drops the seismic charge or whatever it is,
which was terrific.
Yeah, a callback to it was Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones. It got used in Mandalorian, I believe.
Oh, that's true.
And and we get the smile, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
With the explosion.
Yeah. R.I.P. Sarlacc. Forever in our hearts. Yes. We'll miss you in your prolonged gestation.
So after this, we know that Fennec and Boba have another heart-to-heart, and they've kind of made their peaceful truce alliance. So they are now effectively a team in both timelines. And again, we're going to fill that gap, Memento style, using season 2 of Mando as the final piece where they both cross. In a regular time, Boba wakes up from his back to nap again, and Fennec tells Boba Fett that the mods are combing the city, looking for no trouble, looking up for who's up to no good. And guys, who's up to no good? We know him, we love him. He's drowning his sorrows in the bar. It's Black Chrysanthemum.
Oh man,
he's back.
So great.
And he's pissed off. He's got
this
is amazing.
Scene,
this is my favorite.
And it makes so much more sense. Remembering that he got his ass handed to him by a couple of punk kids.
Yeah.
So he's mad, drunk, looking for a fight, and he comes across a group of Trandoshans, and historically speaking, they are not best of friends at all. Trandoshans kidnap Wookiees,
hate each other,
drop them on planets, and then hunt them for sport.
And take their pelts.
Yes, we saw that a big thing with Book of Boba Fett. The Trandoshan leader presents Wookiee pelts to Boba Fett as part of his tribute.
That's right. And even Bosk has Wookiee pelts on him in an Empire. And that's a big thing with the Trandoshans is their hate for the Wookiees and vice versa. Wookiees hate Trandoshans. So I've seen a lot of stuff online where people are like, is he just drunk and like starting bar fights with these guys? And I'm like, well, no, there's a history. His history between Trandoshans and things, but he is drunk and looking for a bar fight. But that's why he's going after these particular gentlemen. We're just having a good time.
Tune in to Disney Plus for the book of Black Chrysanthemum, which season 1 is effectively West Side Story. So in this, he kicks ass, he beats the shit out of those guys, and thank God for Jennifer Beals. Comes in and talks him down, offers them.
Or tries to.
Yeah, offers them.
It was good.
His debt's clear if he just moves on and all that. So
and the best part about it is hit it, Max. She calls him Max. I was like, yeah! Shout out to Max Rebo. And on top of that, rips a Trandoshan's arm off. We see a Wookiee ripping people's arms off.
Jennifer Beals comes in and says, put him down. And this was one of the things that bothered me later about the episode. She verbally tells us the story of Black Chrysanthemum and his glory days as a gladiator.
Yeah.
With all of the stuff we saw earlier about things we already knew about, I would have rather have seen this flashback
Sure.
of Black Chrysanthemum
In the
as a
ring.
gladiator in the pit, the crowd
Yeah.
cheering his name.
Yeah, I mean, you
And-
could have clearly done that when he was pondering, sitting at the
Yeah.
bar. I mean, that would have been way better. But I mean, ifs and buts and COVID restrictions and budget restrictions. But I feel you, yes.
But
Yeah,
she
man,
retells the
there's-
story to him in order to stroke his ego and says, in those days, it was cool to watch you tear people apart, but now it's just pathetic. Put
Yeah.
him down and I'll clear your bar tab. And he says, nah, rips off the arms of the Trandoshan and pays his tab in full with cash. In a
And
very
Love it,
sorry
love
about
it.
the mess kind of attitude.
Yeah.
As he leaves, though, crosses paths with Boba Fett, who says, as they talk a little bit, but the stinger, the cherry on top of this whole scene, as Black Chrysanthemum leaves, Boba Fett tells him, it looks like you could use a job. So he needs
Ooh,
to
baby.
get him out of his pit of despair, and that's the one you want to hire. But again, it's how the king sets up his pawns, sets up his back row, and that's what Boba Fett's been doing all season.
And I'd like to take credit for that from our last episode. I was like, I bet you any money that they're going to team up, and I'm very happy to be right about that, because I want to see them team up again and kick some ass together.
So again, last little bit of the episode, there's the meeting of effectively Godfather style meeting of the families on Mos Espa, and they're talking about what's happening. Long and short of it being that the Pike Syndicate is coming. They are coming to overtake power. Power is like a vacuum, is what Boba Fett says at the start of the episode, and the Pike Syndicate is gonna fill that void and do it. So realistically, Black Chrysanthemum is there next to Boba Fett. Boba Fett has Fennec as well too, and they are talking, and they're saying he's going to need some more muscle. He's going to need some muscle that's going to have to come in and help. And with this, we hear the chords of the theme. From the
Before that,
what?
Hold on. Before that, the one guy kind of balks at him. And we're like,
why should
what
we
are you
listen
gonna?
to you?
Why should you listen to you? And then boom, you get the rumble from underneath, literally from underneath him with the Rancor claw.
Boba Fett has set this dinner table above the Rancor pit, and when the guy says, "Why should we listen to you?" Bang, we see the claw, and it's amazing. It's like,
Oh
and they're
my
all
gosh, it
scared,
was
of course.
hilarious. And like, it's just a fantastic scene where I jumped out of my seat. I was just like, yes. Like, it's just a pop that, like, oh yeah, I have a Rancor. That's right. And the rest of them are like, whoa, Rancor.
So yeah, and Boba Fett pretty much comes to the proposal of, you don't have to fight in this war, just don't mess with us while we do it. Stay neutral. If you do that,
it says don't team with the Pike Syndicate and betray me.
Yeah. Which is a good deal. Like, you don't have to fight, just don't do anything.
Get in my way.
Don't get in the way, which is a good deal. So yeah, then you get to the Black Chrysanthemum, or get to the little sting. We're gonna need something, and Fennec says, I need some more muscle, which Fennec replies, I think I may know somebody. And then you get the sting into the full end credits even. I'm just like, oh, and everybody in their mind, everybody in the universe lost their minds because they know what that means. We are going to see a certain gentleman join the fray.
Yeah, the line is, credits can buy muscle if you know where to look, and that again leads right into the theme, Din Djarin's theme from The Mandalorian.
So now here's the question. So that obviously Din Djarin's coming into the fray. Do any of the other bounty hunters come into it? Do you get Carl Weathers? Do you get all the rest of the bounty hunters? Because he's going to need.
Give it up, man.
An army
is gone, or who is it?
No. I know she's gone.
She's legit. She's got a town to run.
Gina Carano's gone.
No, but are we going to get those some of the cast of characters from Mando? The bounty hunters, right? Because he needs an army.
I could see either way. I could see his ship show up, and the gates open, and it could be Carl Weathers, and it could be him. Absolutely.
You guys went to Mandalorian because of that musical sting, and it seems pretty obvious that they'll try to recruit him for sure. I would like to see Bosk or Dengar or Zuckuss or Forlom.
A lot of people have
IG-88.
that.
Oh my
Cad
gosh!
Bane.
that
Oh my gosh!
usual suspects lineup of the Empire Strikes Back bounty
Like an
hunters.
army of bounty hunters. Let's go!
There's a lot
Oh
of
my
that
gosh!
you could, and I do think that I think Dingeron's coming in the episode. I think he's going to get a call. I think he's going to show up right away. That's episode 5. I think, is there 6 this season?
7
episodes, 7 in total.
7.
So next week is 5. And we probably won't do this until the last 3 have aired. Then that might be our next episode. We'll talk about that.
Well,
But,
depending on the 7, if we do 5 and 6 as an episode, and like there's probably going to be a lot to talk about in 7. So
there is a lot that you could do if Dingeron's in the next 3 or the end in the next 2 after that. Yes, you very well. The internet is talking about a lot of those. I made a call on to some old friends as well too, and yeah, Dengar and IG-88. And whether or not how you want to incorporate Cad Bane is ripe to be into live action as well too. The internets want Cad Bane. I know they don't have a great relationship, but it's right there. So
my gosh.
that again effectively is where we're all caught up. We're caught up as an audience. That's where it leaves us. So mainly, like the rest of you, we're just predicting on where the war on Tatooine, the war for Mos Espa, is going to go.
The sky's the limit of what they can do, of what they can bring in there. And I think that no matter who they bring in there, there's always room for more. Like, unless they bring in at least 3 or 4 characters now. I mean, just bringing Jin isn't going to be enough. But by 6 and 7, I want to see at least a couple more of those guys you just named.
Yeah.
The cameo I would like to see is after they've got the people, it's like, okay, we've got the guys, now we need the weapons, and that's when Hondo Onaka shows up with a crate full of guns.
Yeah, good, yeah.
Oh my gosh, come on, stop it. You're killing me right now. I love it.
There's a lot. It's right for this.
But my one question will be with the last flashback, he gets out of the Bacta tank and the computer says you are fully healed. So are we done with flashbacks?
Ooh.
Unless, I mean, the only thing I thought is if you do have Dingeron, you can effectively fill in maybe a scene in real time when he comes in the Robert Rodriguez episode last season, and he is in 3 episodes of season 2, but you could do a flashback to that scene of maybe a scene that we didn't see of them communicating and talking. And then that could be, but as we talked about, he has Fennec, he's right there. That's like, there's just that little bit. You could do one more flashback showing that episode from maybe a different point of view, and then that will be your kind of middle point.
Bridge,
but yes, you're right. He doesn't need to be in the back to tank anymore.
Which is great.
One more thing, Scott, you would be more clear on this than either of us. Has Sasha Banks been on TV recently?
No, but she got injured, I thought.
Oh, or is she filming
injured
Boba Fett stuff
or
as
secret injury
as her Mando character? Because I was thinking, let's get Bo-Katan, but we could get the Sasha Banks character instead.
Yeah, so it said here, as of January, she's out of action 6 to 8 weeks because she injured her leg wrestling Charlotte Flair, which I thought. So
6 to 8 weeks sounds like good shooting time.
It looks
shooting
like
schedule, 6 to 8 weeks shooting
right
schedule.
Before Mania, but you know what? She did her.
Yeah, and then she comes back
because I
she
saw
comes
that
back at
she got hurt,
Mania
and I was
in
like,
her
man,
Mando
sucks.
gear.
Oh my gosh.
Well, yes, right now Sasha Banks is not on TV and she is at home nursing a leg injury.
No,
is
she's
her home
not.
Pinewood Studios? I don't know, but
you heard it here first, folks. Sasha Banks
maybe
coming in episode 7 or 6. Okay, so what do we say? Oh, so you're saying what is our predictions?
Well, let's get back to episode 4. What do we guys think about that? Better than 3? I give this one an 8. I do think it was better. I like the more streamlined story of episode 4. Aside from that little problem I have with the Starlight Pit, but I did ultimately like everything else. So probably 7.5 and 8 for me on this episode.
I'll be closer to a 6, 5.5 or a 6. I did like a lot of it, but we saw things we already knew about, and I would have rather seen things that we didn't. Like I said, with the story of Black Chrysanthemum would have been something I would have loved to have seen.
Right. Instead of just told. Yeah, I agree with Matt. It was like the whole time I was like watching it and it was just kind of following along and not really excited. until obviously later on into the episode, and it kind of like seemed like one of those episodes that was just kind of necessary to fill the gaps in order to get to the big stuff. And I'm so now that is all, like we said, that's all tied up. I'm expecting like major fireworks 5, 6, 7. Now that they've gotten all the housekeeping out of the way, where they've set everything up for the big battle, and now they can pay off those dividends with some hopefully crazy episodes.
Not a shout out, but some verification that the next few episodes are going to be great. Recently on a Kevin Smith podcast, he had one of the directors of photography, Dave Klein, who he went to film school with and was the cinematographer on Kevin Smith's first 3 movies. So he has the inside track. He had him on for an interview, and Kevin pretty much asked, what exciting things are we going to see? And Dave said, well, I shot episodes 6, 7, or 5, 6, 7. So you'll be happy to see that. I can tell you'll be happy to see what happens there.
Ooh.
Says the guy getting paid by the company.
No, he's giving his boy inside info. For sure.
Anything else, gentlemen? 1 hour of Star Wars talk is great.
Yeah.
What else do we got? We're looking forward to.
Yeah, no, just like we made some predictions in our last episode. What are we predicting is going to happen in 5? Do you think that they're going to just straight bring in Mando, or is they going to bring him in 5, or is he going to? Are they going to build into that?
We've been reminded that he has his ship now. He's had it for this whole time, but we are reminded that he has it, so we can get off planet. We haven't been off Tatooine yet.
We haven't, and we also need to bridge the gap. We've seen him get his armor, but we also
There's
need
another guy too. Timothy Olyphant could come.
That's right. Too. But we also need to see that kind of like the armor, him getting like having the armor
repainted,
and all that kind of stuff, because he just kind of appeared with it. So
yeah.
That could be another flashback.
Exactly. I could see that. I could see them go kind of a recruiting episode next. You're right. It could start with like, you could see the poo fire shots, and then Din Djarin runs through. He meets up with him at a bar, something like that. You really need Pedro. Like,
we can all talk about it now, because I saw Space Jam the other day, the new Space Jam, where, and I'm reminded of LeBron and Bugs going to the different worlds of WB to recruit the rest of the Toon Squad. Let's get that and repaint it for Star Wars.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
exactly.
So Jin will probably be the last guy that they go to see, right? They'll probably get your ragtag other people first, and then the crown reveal at the end of the episode will be Mando, right? So that'll kind of be like the big finale of that episode, and be like, and we got Mando.
Yeah, you know what? That's great right there. Like, he could. I mean, even if you want to, if we're writing, maybe next episode, maybe he goes to pay Dengar a visit. Dengar spits in his face and tells him to get out of.
Yeah.
You know what you did, you son of a chalk slicker. And then he'll be like, but then, maybe in episode 6, a bullet comes and it's Boba doing the old Billy Madison, thank God I called that guy. And there's a lot you could do. So maybe in the next episode is an off-world recruiting where, he's going and paying visits to Bosk and Dengar. And then the episode ends with Din saying he's in, and then they fly back together. Then that's your whole episode 5. And then those guys come back in 7 on like one ship, like cavalry style. So
like Wedge on the Millennium Falcon. No,
biggest paycheck job in Star Wars.
You tease the Billy Madison scene there, and I'm half expecting a Steve Buscemi cameo, knowing like he's buddies with Rodriguez and having him
oh my gosh, a Buscemi little role in there would be amazing. Oh man, even like you can go through all of Rodriguez's buddies. How about an Antonio Banderas?
era. Save
That'd
him.
be amazing,
Come
but it
on.
would certainly take away from a lot. I mean,
sure, but you could throw him in. You can even just throw him in as a voice of something.
yes, that would be.
That's
the
what I
thing.
mean. You throw him in as a voice, and like as soon as the person speaks, you know who it is. He's got one of those voices that you will know that's
Like a
Antonio
salsa droid would
Banderas.
be great. Banderas
Oh my
is like
gosh.
a salsa droid. Would
And
be
like you could get him to do it. It's just like, hey, Antonio, record
talking to
a
an
couple
iPhone.
lines for me.
Send it to me.
Yeah.
It's still
And
him,
I would assume it's Jennifer Beals because Selma Hayek was busy.
Oh, true. One of the last things, and we'll see if this pays off. I read somewhere that they've already got 2 of them already, and we'll see if they continue with more. They have 2 cast members of the IT crowd, so we'll see if they bring in Chris Dowd. And anybody else from there, because they've got Matt Berry and
Richard
Adewale, yeah, already as droids. So we'll see if you have any more IT
Chris O'Dowd droid for sure.
Oh my gosh,
actually,
And then
we
have the post credits scene where the 3 of them are playing poker or reformatting a computer or something.
Did you play? And you have to do the. Did you turn it off and turn it on again?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, guys.
Right.
Anything else? We got some good predictions.
The Mod Gang and Danny Trejo Funko Pops are coming for sure.
Trejo for sure.
Yeah.
Trejo, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Trejo for sure because they released the poster. Definitely Black Series, like of course, but like you're gonna get those soon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the new thing, right? The Funko. Which Funko Pop do you want from it?
Yeah, what are gonna get made?
Okay, so guys know I don't get Star Wars things, but if they have a Danny Trejo mold,
a Trejo one would be great.
Now, does that open the door for Machete?
That's what I mean. Why are they not doing it completely? Like you could absolutely, but you should do what I do and just get all Trejos, no matter what. Just get one Star Wars one. Be like, I'm the biggest Star Wars fan you'll ever meet. I have one, and it's Danny Trejo.
Rancor Keeper.
Joe, the Rancor Keeper. That would be funny.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I need a Machete pop now.
Cool. All right, guys. Anything else?
Nope. That's it for me.
Okay. Say goodnight, Kevin.
Good night, Kevin.